Okay. So the 1, 2, 3 was not said. Okay. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to welcome you all for coming to our inaugural event on law and technology, which is a fancy name that we call Law and Tech Talk, different from TED Talk, of course. So first of all, I would like to introduce the event of tonight, and then I'm going to introduce the panel member we have here tonight and the different thematic block we are going to discuss tonight. So first of all, this Law and Tech Talk, which myself I'm having sometimes difficulty to say, Law and Tech Talk. So Law and Tech Talk is a series of talk and discussions that bring together academic, legal professional, but also people from the industry to basically discuss this relationship between technology and law. And it's an annual event, so every year we have one season. This year is the first season that starts with the topics of data governance and data protection and governance, sorry. And the thematic that we are going to talk about today and dig into is AI privacy and artificial intelligence. So what we are going to look into tonight, we are going to discuss some of the challenges that we face in this nexus between law and technology, AI and data protection and data privacy. We are going to discuss throughout the 1 hour, 30 minutes we have tonight. So before we start really discussing in depth, so I would like to first give the floor to our panel members, because I believe in one thing. It's much better to present yourself than someone presenting you, because the passion you use to introduce yourself, it will be more better than someone introducing you with some mistakes. So, but before they start introducing themselves, allow me to welcome today the panelists we have. I will start first from my right with Professor Sara Migliolini, who is assistant professor at University of Macau, precisely at the Faculty of Law. And on my left, I have Miss Sara, Miss Grassa Savara. Yeah, I was using the opposite one, Savara as
Saraiva.
Saraiva, right? Okay, so Saraiva. You see, I was right when I say it's better to let them present themselves than making a mistake in the name. So, and then online we have Mr. Eddie Diombon, who is joining us online today. Thank you very much for joining us. He's actually where he's presently is I think 6 or 7 in the morning, but he took the time to join us tonight. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the speakers to briefly introduce themselves, and much better than I can do. So I will start with you first.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for the invitation, and also for the presentation. So as many people here might know me, I am with the University of Macau, assistant professor at the Faculty of Law. Let's say that most of my research now is in these issues of law and technology, data protection, but everything through the lenses of what AI is doing to the legal system. Before that, I also practice as a lawyer, more in the area of dispute resolution, and so I still do a little bit of that, but most of my time is occupied with AI right now. So yeah, that's
Thank you very much, Professor Sara. Now I'm going to ask...
me?
Okay.
Do I need, this is on?
Me? Me? Okay, so now I'm going to turn into Ms. Grassa. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Duty. So my name is Grassa Saraiva. I'm a lawyer in Portugal and in Macau as well. I run my own practice that is mostly exclusively dedicated to data privacy, AI, cybersecurity, information governance in general. I'm also certified by the International Association of Privacy Professionals as a privacy professional. and I also have a company in Hong Kong providing DPO services to companies mostly on GDPR compliance.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eddie, can you please introduce yourself in a few words, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone from here. My name is Eddie Dio, but I go by Eddie. I'm a machine learning engineer and founder of Solar Rock Technologies, where we build data-driven AI products and also privacy-aligned with our company.
Thank you very much. So you can see by the diversity of the panel that the discussion tonight is going to be very interesting, because we are going to look this matter from different perspectives, from the perspective of someone from the academia, someone from the legal profession, but also someone from the industry. So let me explain you what we are going to talk about today. We have, the talk will be divided into two main topics that we are going to discuss, three main topics, sorry, we are going to discuss. The first one, we are going to look into the impact of AI on law in general, but also on the legal practice. But the second part, which is bringing us here tonight, is the specific challenge that AI poses to the data privacy. And the third part that we are going to talk about tonight will be the data governance. So what the governance mechanism that has been set up by companies, but also at macro level, to reconcile this nexus between AI and data privacy. So without further ado, I will start with the first questions, which I would like to ask the first speaker, Professor Sarah, to give us some insight on that topic. So we know recently that there have been a lot of discussions in the literature, but also from the practitioner perspective, that AI has an impact on the legal research, but also on the legal practice. So from your perspective, can you take us through this discussion and questions in a few minutes, please?
Sure. So as a first point, I would like to say that maybe I come from a different view of what could be a classic answer to that question: what is the relationship between AI and law? So sometimes we hear from the industry that the legal system needs to catch up with AI because, you know, this technology is so disruptive, it's so special that we need new rules. And that might be partially true. But my view is that for any new technology or even any new societal need, the legal system has an answer. We might not like it, it may be not adequate, but the legal system is there to provide an answer. We will have rules on liability, we will have rules on data protection. So there will be questions that remain unanswered or that have an unsatisfactory answer. As lawyers, as academics, and citizens, we should question the law for sure to make the legal system evolve. But my starting point is that we do have the rules to apply to AI. AI is nothing special in that sense. It might prompt evolution, but at the start we do have enough rules to deal with it. So there's nothing as, you know, AI as something completely not embedded in the legal system, as sometimes the rhetoric would have us think. So that is my first point, is where I come from. And the topic of AI and law is so vast. It's like saying what's electricity and law or any type of technology. So it's very, it's very hard to tackle. So you have to find a way to kind of break it down somehow. So the way in which I think about it is by phases. So there are legal issues that have to do with building AI. So if we think about generative AI, you know, all the data protection issues, IP issues that have, you know, have been raised for the training of those models, but this is true for any type of AI technology. Then you would have legal issues for the deployment of AI, to embed AI in society. And so that would be commercial products that leverage AI, from drones to ChatGPT, of course. But also how, for example, government, the administration is taking on and deploying AI, embedding AI in their services. So there are a lot of legal issues in that part. And then there are legal issues about enforcement, about policing this technology. So liability, but also all the new infrastructure that we are creating, like data protection authorities, and now, for example, in the European Union, AI offices with people specialized in monitoring the market and monitoring what different actors are doing. with this technology. So if you break it down like that, then you can, zoom in and see what the legal issues really are, and where do we need evolution, where do we need, where the legal system is already ready, and all these things. But yeah, that would be for my
Thank you very much. You mentioned something that's brought something to my attention. You say that there is no way AI can escape from the law. But my question is that sometimes how can we regulate something that we really don't know how it works properly?
Yeah, so sure. AI will raise new questions that no other technology has raised before. And if we look back, for example, at the beginning of the 20th century, cars and industrial production actually created a new field of law that is product liability and also insurance. There was insurance, for example, in the maritime sector before, but then that evolved into something that is much more embedded into society. So I think we will have to evolve in that sense. But at the same time, again, even if we don't really understand how AI works, we know how to apportion liability, for example, with the deep pockets principle that we're going to just go with the manufacturer, even though, and then, yeah, that's just an example with liability. I don't think the legal system needs at the start to be completely prepared before we deploy this technology. I think it will also be a transitional phase. We need to be okay with the fact that the first cases and the first, decisions about this will not be probably the best, but then we will adapt.
Thank you very much for this introductory remark. Now I'm turning to lawyers. So, from your perspective, we know recently that AI is considered as a tool to facilitate and help the legal practice. Can you share with us a bit your insight on that?
Well, sure, Tuti. I think one of the main tensions between the law and AI, where we will find most friction, is because it is a new thing. It's not just an IT product, and it's not just an IT service. So generative AI basically mimics humans, is able to generate new content based on a computational system, and this is new. And so there are areas of the law, and I agree that in general there are principles that would apply to generative AI in general. But the frictions, I think, we will find mostly around data privacy, of course, because there's vast amounts of information that's needed, and there may be a clash there in between what AI needs. AI needs data. Citizens need some form of protection because privacy in some places is still a fundamental right. So there's that thing. There's also, I think, an issue of accountability. We have rules in liability. I'm not sure the rules on liability are prepared to tackle all the issues that we face when we are dealing with a software like AI, because there are so many actors. And there has been this case of a teenager who was chatting with an AI bot, and he was kind of depressed, and he basically just mentioned something along the lines, I think I should kill myself because I'm depressed and I'm just a pain for everyone. And then the AI bot said, yes, I think you should, because you are a pain to everyone. So who's accountable here, right? Is it the seller of the software? Is the manufacturer? But what if it's an open AI and there's everyone's contributing to this system? Who will be held accountable for this situation? The parents of the kid. So there is this issue with, I think, accountability that needs to be looked into. I think eventually at the deployment, at the development level. What is it allowed for the developers of software to put out in the market? But it's very difficult to tackle those issues. There's issues with transparency as well. because the legal system is thought for humans. So we have rules for individuals or legal entities, companies, and usually it's humans and legal entities who makes decisions. So there's a thought process there that you are able to justify and understand how we have reached from here to here. But now we have a system that, as you've mentioned, we don't know how it works. We just know it's data-driven, so it's not human-centric as the law. The way it decides is based on the information that has fed the system, the algorithm, based on data patterns, but it's nothing similar to a thought process. So not knowing how certain decisions or contents or things are made also raises, I think, an issue for in relation to the transparency that, in general, the legal system defends in general for decisions, products, services, and so on. So I'm also not pro like over-regulating or go into details. I think we need to have a good foundations to be able to navigate, because AI can be like our best friends or our worst nightmare, right? So we want to make sure that we do it right. So I think there are various areas where there's a conflict or a tension. Those principles that we have in the law, transparency, accountability, would in any way apply. Like currently in Macau, we don't have any AI rules or regulations, right? But we have the legal principles of the system, and we still have the Personal Data Protection Act. We have restrictions on cross-border data transfers, and so those rules are there, but maybe we need to look into something else if you are advising a company or something on how to deploy a system, or so maybe you need to look into what other countries are doing and try eventually to follow the best practices in the area to be able to implement responsible AI and not just go because it's very sexy. Everybody's talking about AI. Everybody wants AI. And if someone says, oh, be careful with this or that, no one really wants to listen because we just want the benefits and the convenience of the AI. But there are various things that should be considered in the legal practice. Well, as we all know, many lawyers and even like audit firms are using AI. There's been an incident with, I think, EY or Deloitte. I don't want to go wrong, but they've charged like hundreds of thousands of dollars for an audit report. But then finally they had to admit they've used AI, and they had to refund back the price. So AI is being used in the legal practice as well. But legal practitioners need to be extra careful when using AI tools, because majority of AI tools is not ensuring any confidentiality. So you need to choose the AI tools wisely. You need to know why and for what purposes you are going to use that tool. Make sure it works for the intended purpose. And you have to pay a solution that you will pay, because if you don't pay, you are paying with the information and losing. And lawyers are entrusted with secrets from their clients, and so we cannot just use an OpenAI tool to do research about the cases. We cannot put information about our clients there. So the use of AI should be in the legal practice area should be made with extra degree of care. And I would also advise everyone to look into the terms and conditions, the privacy policy. Also, put the settings, the privacy settings, to the top, to as much as you can, in order to be able to protect the information and confidentiality that you are due and required by law.
Thank you very much. Actually, by listening to both of you, it proved again how important it is to have such kind of events, because it raises awareness about this challenge that both we are facing in the legal practice, but also even in terms of work to be done, because the field of AI is still is a known field. there's a lot of work to do in terms of responsibility, in terms of regulating product, and so on and so forth. So I think, again, we agree that tonight's discussion was worth having, because we are participating in this awareness raising. I know, Mr. Adi, you are not from the legal field, but I think you have you may have your opinion on this matter. Please, in a few minutes, can you tell us what you think? Microphone, please. Yeah. It's okay, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for the organizers of this event. I think we need more of this to kind of like educate the general public about the benefit, both the benefit and the dangers of AI. With that being said, I am a big advocate, and I love AI. And as an engineer, as an enthusiast, I think that this technology, we're always going to have revolutionary technologies like this. And I think we are living in one of those times that these technologies can be very, very beneficial to humanity. I agree with both my co-panelists, and I just want to say that AI runs on data, just like a car runs on, let's say, petrol or gas. And without data, AI cannot, there's no AI. And data comes from somewhere. And that's where the problem is, where this data is being gotten from to train this AI on. You know, that's the concern about the privacy, where this AI is being gotten from. Are we giving consent to, because this, as an engineer, I work with this system every day. I train AIs based on data, and we retrain it, label it, annotate it, and then restructure it before deploying. But I do want to say that, you know, where the law comes in is coming in as the big brother to the industry to try to regulate and try to implement some of these privacy concerns that the general public might have, because you just don't want to be giving away your data for free for other people to use it and train their particular systems or whatsoever. We should be able to consent to that, give privacy consent, whether that is being through a text message that you're sending or using WhatsApp, or maybe a dash cam or conference like this that we're doing. It should be a consent to the general public that I'm giving away my information for the benefit of the society. I'm giving away my information to be used to train this data, or to be used to train this particular AI system on. AI is going to be very, very beneficial, and machine learning is going to be very, very beneficial to humanity in terms of medicine, discovery, science, law, even law, agriculture as well. Some of the products that we build at Solar Rock Technologies are going to be products that are injected and implemented with AI systems, and are going to be automated by, out to the general public for them to use. And some of these automation tools being trained with machine learning and being developed with algorithm and implemented into it as well are going to be very, very beneficial to people being able to automate their tasks, being able to simplify their job, and being able to learn or even expand their studies. But even with that, I'm still advocating for, data privacy. I still think that people should be able to give consent to their data. People should be able to say, okay, there's a certain type of data that I don't want to be out there. There's a certain type of data that you cannot just grab out of the internet, or you cannot just pull my data without my consent. And that's where the law, the law and the rules and regulations comes in. And I think that the judiciary, or the industry, the technology, the AI and the technology industry have to be able to work with regulators, creating laws and creating, how do we regulate data? How do we regulate companies that are scraping data all over the internet? How do we regulate the data of private citizens that are not consenting to the data that has been used to train these models on?
Thank you very much, Mr. Adi, for this interesting insight. So now we are moving to the second thematic block, which already some of you have highlighted during your interventions, because most of you addressed the issue of AI and data privacy, the issue surrounding that. So now I'm going to dig more into that topics, because First, we all agree, and through your explanation, that AI to create the results that's needed data, right? So data is it's a food. It's what is required for data for AI to be called as AI. So, but again, so we know that come along with some challenges. For example, Mr. Eddie was mentioning now about the consents, because the way data are collected, data are processed, for example, is not in all cases that those data subjects are informed and are given their consents on that. So which leads the big question of violation of privacy. So now, as AI as a privacy expert, can you tell us what are the major challenges from both in general, but because you have been practicing in this field for so long, so can you share with us some of the challenges that face the data privacy face in this advance of AI?
Sure. So the challenges are the tensions with the principles that I've mentioned. So, but I would start by, I think the first challenge is to establish the legal basis. What is the legal basis under which we are building this system or deploying this system? So if we are training a new model, where are we getting the information from? What was for the purpose for which we collected the data? And if we want now to use this data to train a model, it has to be related with the purpose for which it was collected initially. So you may replace the process that was previously done by humans by a process that's now automated, but the purpose for which that processing of the data is being done is the same. So you cannot just get data from employees and now you know how much they earn, and now you use this data to train an AI system for marketing services to promote your malls, for example. That's not allowed. But if you want to train a system to help manage the HR system, eventually you may have a legal basis. It could be the legitimate interests, or it could be the consents from the team members. I would say that at this point in time, majority of entities would not be ready with the consents, or the consents that they have just started being collected. And that's not the data that's being used to train. You need much more data than just the last 2-3 years that we've started talking about these issues to train the data. So first issue is establish a legal basis, and that sometimes is a challenge, and there's some decisions already from courts. What is the legal basis to process data for AI purposes? When you are deploying a tool, for example, you can deploy that tool. You are not training a system, but you are deploying a tool to process the data in a way that's consistent with the purpose for which it was originally collected. So we need to abide by this rule. And then there's the entire set of data protection principles, like data minimization. So we need to, that's where the technology people and the legal people really needs to work together. And so legal people need to learn something about technology, and technology people need to learn something about privacy. And you need to have a team of people that understand and have the sensibility to understand what are the concerns, because we are from different worlds, like technology people and lawyers used to be people that
that's why we have
don't have many points in common or things to discuss.
Yeah.
But now we have all this technology with all these legal implications, and we need to step up the game and really work together. And so in that regard, it's very important to bring awareness to the employees of a company, and also for ourselves when we are using, so we can use it in a more responsible way, and in a way that's not prejudicial to us. Like the teenager that was chatting with the AI bot, his data should be all over. He has no control over it anywhere. But it would be information that eventually he would just share with the doctor, and the doctor will be subject to confidentiality. But that AI bot is not. So data minimization, to start with. Do you really need the personal information for that purpose? If you don't need, do it without personal information. It would have much lesser implications than if it has, and risks. Because if there's a breach and the system is full of personal information, then you have another set of problems to notify regulators about the breach, and now the data is all over. You cannot even tell where it is if you are using multiple vendors or open sources. You have issues with the transparency, again, because we cannot really tell what is going behind the machine, but it's also needed to, just use the information that you need. It should be needed. So there's also this necessity and the purpose limitation. The other thing that also brings challenges, especially here in Macau, is the cross-border data transfers. Because if you are using a cloud-based AI system, most probably it's not in town. It's in Hong Kong, it's in China, it's in Europe, it's in the US, right? And that raises for companies issues to address, maybe for some data that needs to be localized. You need to think things differently and maybe think about some on-prem solutions for data that can be, you have the consents for the cross-border and you have established the mechanisms for the data transfers. For those, maybe you can go a bit beyond and be a bit more aggressive in the use of the technology, but always in a responsible manner by reviewing the terms and conditions, conducting the privacy impact assessments, the risk assessment of the AI solution, doing the security review. So having all those steps and processes in place to make sure that you deploy it in a responsible and ethical manner.
Thank you very much. So I may turn to Professor Sarah. What is your intake on this?
Yeah, so of course I agree, both speakers. This is really a very interesting conversation. If I understand correctly from Graça, we're talking about deployment. So we're taking the view of a company that wants to, use AI, a bank or whatever company to improve their operations or reach more customers and these kind of things. And of course, from that standpoint, if you are a lawyer in that company or advising that company, all these issues are absolutely fundamental. You want to be compliant as much as possible with all the regulation that might actually be applicable. But because my work is more thinking about the higher kind of level in a sense, I always feel that this treatment of companies that is necessary is also, in a way, a little bit unfair. It comes a little bit late because, especially if it's generative AI, these models, whatever model a bank or a company is going to deploy and train, specifically fine-tune, it's going to be based on either a commercial or open source model that has been built, in the past 10 years, with no respect whatsoever of the principle of consent, data minimization, and purpose limitation. So in a way, that is coming now, and we want, especially for the sake, especially of the employees, I think they are the stakeholders here that are really more at risk, because the public at large, we all put our data on the internet at the time where we were not aware of how this could be used. And as Mr. Eddy mentioned, AI needs data, and as we probably know, for 10 years or 15 years or maybe more, there has been this practice of scraping websites, right? So with crawlers, you can do it automatically. And I think the project, I always thought it was a good one, because we wanted to kind of create an archive for the internet that maybe 15 or 20 years ago felt like something so ephemeral that could disappear. It was not so embedded in our lives. So you want to create that, and every month you would scrape the data from social media or whatever other website, and then those archives can be just used to train AI, the ones that contain personal data, but also the ones that contain copyrighted materials of all types, from books to images, anything else. And so this has been used and has been leveraged by all the companies that have built many different models, in particular the generative AI ones. So we are now in a situation where we are asking smaller players to comply with a lot of rules, and maybe sometimes, I don't know if it's true, seems quite almost impossible to make sure 100% that you are compliant when you take some decisions. But at the same time, we are kind of standing on the shoulders of these other companies that have basically, they went fast and broke things, as they say in Silicon Valley, and now the system and the cat, it's kind of out of the bag, and we can't do much about it. So I think that if we were to be serious about enforcing the principles of data protection that we know, like purpose limitation and consent, we would have to somehow not destroy these models, which some people have said, but I think it would be kind of a waste at this point, because I think we can really have a lot of benefits from that technology. But at least to get some sort of compensation for anyone who actually has kind of provided data unwillingly in a way, but has provided them nonetheless to train these models. There are a few class actions that have been started in the US, not just the IP ones from singers or authors of all kinds, also the New York Times, but also from consumers. So class actions from, for example, all the residents of California who ever posted anything on the internet between 2008 and 2018. That's one of the classes that has acted. And then they would get some sort of compensation, either based on consumer law, consumer protection law and data protection law in general, or failing that, because you need a really like a strict cause of action to qualify under those, or unjust enrichment, because that would be a type of, those companies have leveraged commercially the value of that data without paying the price for it. So there would be unjust enrichment. So I've actually, I met with some of the lawyers that tried to kind of bring these lawsuits. I think a few of them have been settled and others are still pending, and no one really has a lot of hope that they will actually succeed. But my point is that if you really take it seriously, what we have would be enough to at least get compensation. So that is my first reaction. But for sure today, if you are a company that wants to deploy AI, then you have to be obviously pay attention to all these things that we said.
I know recently your interest about generative AI and data privacy. So can you take us through that, some of the challenges raised by this generative AI that we know it become a tool for everybody now to use, but at the same time we are sometimes even for company processing, because it has some function to process information and data. So, and this raised the question of erasure and any other question that's related to privacy. So can you talk a bit about that?
So I think Graça made a wonderful landscape. She already really touched upon so many of the issues. One issue that I'm really concerned about, and maybe didn't emerge in the discussion, is erasure. Because so one of the rights that, for example, under the GDPR and data protection law you might have as a user, as a consumer, is to have your data removed and somehow erased, even though we know that nothing gets erased fully on the internet. But you would have that possibility at least to ask for erasure and get some of it. The problem with machine learning is that if data that is, can be personal data or any other type of data, is used to train the model and the model learns from it, then it kind of remains in the system. And so there are some studies, and maybe Mr. Eddie knows much more than me about this, about machine unlearning. So how do we actually get this data out of, and it seems to, so from what I read, this is kind of technically not feasible, and even if it's feasible, then whatever is left of that model doesn't perform as well as the model previously before erasure. So that is something that I'm concerned about, because more broadly, as one of the themes of my research, is the relationship between data and how we perceive ourselves as human, and the concept of human dignity, right? Because we know that data protection, privacy can be fundamental rights, but I don't think we're fully mature about how we want to perceive them, because at the same time we allow people to trade data. I can trade my data for a Facebook profile or whatever other social media the kids are using today. I'm still on Facebook mostly. But so those kind of very, very deep questions really are raised by AI. And the idea that you can put data about you out there on the internet at time X when you are fine, for people knowing where you are, with whom you're hanging out, what you're doing. And then 10 years later, that it still defines you somehow because it's out there, it's in the models, or it's somehow still something about you. You can still get recommendations for products that you looked up 10 years ago, right? And maybe you're not just interested, but maybe they were illegal or they were something that you don't want to get recommendations from anymore. So I think that this idea that the machine keeps defining you by having data, because the data is out there about you, that really bothers me. So erasure would be one of the issues that I would flag on top of all the others. Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Adi, so you have heard the two panelists, and what I would like you to tell us is from your perspective and as an expert in technology and IT, so how this question reasoned to you?
Please, can you repeat that question? I just want to refresh my mind a little bit.
No, I was saying that you heard the two panel members, their positions on this challenge that AI poses to data privacy, and you as an IT expert. So, what is your take on this?
Yes, I believe that the data is always going to be data is always going to be there. As far as we as human beings exist, because everything we do every day is data. Like taking a taxi to work is data, going to work is data, going to grocery store is data. Data is everywhere. But I do agree that even as she said, sometimes there are some data that are on there, and you try to take it back, and you can't really take it back because there's something called cloud infrastructure. Most of these AI systems runs on a cloud infrastructure, and then on that cloud infrastructure, there's a backend. There's a backend to the cloud. The front end is what we see. The back end is what we worked on, and then there's a backup to the back end. So when your data gets into the system and goes through an AI system that is being trained, whether it's through annotation or through labeling or through deployment, then it goes back into backup, and then that same data can be reused based on what purpose the data it's supporting. I do agree that there should be some sort of regulations between the law and, again, AI companies. I'm not excluding myself from that. One of the last projects that I did for a company was to go in there and gather their data and train a large set of data to build an automation tool. So the first thing we did is go in there and see how much data that they have. The company has been in existence for a couple of years, so they have a lot of data. So you can't just go in there and do that. First of all, you have to comply with company policy. Then you have to look into their documentation. You have to look into their employees, talk to the CEO, talk to the law department, and see what's on ground for you to build on. What data can you work on? What data can you sort out? Which one can you label? And then you begin to train this machine learning. Begin to train machines on this data, and then actually after that you have to build an algorithm that runs with machine learning. Sometimes we have to plug in large language models just to train the data, and sometimes we have to unplug it out. In terms of going to the public part of it, that is on the private sector, and just going to work with the private sector, you have to comply with the compliances, and also you have to look into the documentation they have and the data policy that they have, whether that is internal or that is external. The data policy that they have, some of the companies, they have a law, they have a legal department, legal team that works with us engineers and tell us, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do, this is what you can use, this is what you cannot use. After you finish labeling, then you have to go back and walk through a documentation and a project plan and show it to them. Now that's for a company that has a legal team, and there's already a law or regulation built into it. But to the general society, everything is up for grabs. I love AI, and this is one of the reasons I founded Solar Technologies is because I want to be able to build cool AI products for general consumption and even for enterprises and even help government in terms of labeling data. Just being able to use it because data is always going to be there. As far as human being exists, there's always going to be data. But I do agree that AI and the technology company, maybe like mine or big tech, have to be able to because right now this it just blew up and there hasn't really been. I'm not saying that I'm not calling for the entire AI industry or technology industry to be regulated. No, I do think that the law has to step in at some point just to protect the average citizen. And I do think that there should be some sort of compensation because yes, you can just go onto the internet and everything is up for grabs if there's anything still there right now. If there's still anything still there right now, and once you're able to grab it and take it into your back end and digitalize it, then you can actually back it up. So even if you go back and delete most of this data, because a lot of big tech has. So if you're thinking about a startup like mine being able to have some sort of a backup system for data, then you can think about what big tech companies or big tech corporations can do with the resources that they have. So yes, there should be some sort of legal, there should be some sort of law, there should be some sort of policies that are written to at least protect the general public to what is being put out there, or you put something out there by mistakes, and before you know, it's being grabbed. Before you go back to go take it down, somebody already have a backup, already had it stored somewhere to the back end, and can be that data can be used to train. Also, going to touch a little bit on algorithm. Most of this data are being grabbed or being trained with bias. There's gender, there's race, there's health condition, there's political references, there's financial responsibilities, there's personal traits that comes with all of this data, and then you have to sort it out. And then talking about the western part of the world, and then talking about maybe like Asia, or talking about Africa, and there's data everywhere. And most of these chatbot systems that we're building right now we're being trained based on a certain type of data. And then there's still so much more data out there that is being worked on, and a lot of things that you can hear about AGI right now. A lot of big techs are in competition about who is going to achieve AGI first. There's a lot of data out there, and I completely agree with both of my presenters that yes, the law needs to come in and try to do something about it at some point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eddy. So we want this talk to be more interactive. So I would like to take a few minute break as my moderator and take some question from the audience, and before we move to the third session. Any questions for the audience? I know the panel has used some technical terms, some of you might not be familiar with it. I think it's a time for you now to clarify some of those terms. Yes, microphone here.
Good evening.
Okay.
Yeah, I can talk. Good evening. My name is Sofia Linhares. I'm a lawyer, so I'm on the boring side of the things, because before we were always, all of us having fun with AI, right? Free access, no limitation. Then comes the lawyers, and they want to limit everything, which is really boring for the perspective of the user. And I was hoping that you, Professor Sarah, would come and defend us, we the users, that we have a lot of fun having access to everything. So, and you mentioned something that I think that I don't know what it is: data protection. I was crossing the street and the camera was facing me, and I didn't give consent for the camera to film me. What is data protection nowadays? I don't know. So we live in this environment of kind of everything that we know as a legal concept is diluted. We don't know what exactly is that, because if we were enjoying having AI as a source of knowledge. Why do we want AI for? Is for everybody have more knowledge, right? That was the purpose. Nobody was thinking that we'll be planning a terrorist attack with information in AI. So what I would like to know is, on your perspective, what are you talking about when you say data protection? What is that in regards of the context that we have nowadays? Then I don't know if I should address you as doctor. I don't think that engineers are doctors, but Mr. Eddie, you don't give me hope because you say that the data will be in the internet forever. How can you assure that? How can you guarantee that? 5 years ago, we didn't know that we'll have COVID and we'll be locked down for days and days at home. So how can that be so sure? And that is something as a user and someone that sometimes puts information in the system and the system goes and grabs it, and of course we are not aware most part of the time what the system is going to do with our information. Telling me that that will be there forever is really not a good scenario for me. To Doutora Graça. So we have a problem in Macau because everything that we post is not controlled by anything in Macau. We don't have a cloud in Macau that controls the information. So how do we do? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for these three interesting questions. Now, I think we can start with Professor Sarah first.
So thank you for this question. I don't think I have an answer because it was a big question, but I'll try my best to say something, at least to reassure. So I think that there is an underlying tension with data protection. Because we as a society across jurisdiction, we haven't decided what exactly is data protection. Is it a fundamental right, akin to human dignity, to the right to health, the right to life, whatever big right that you can think about that is inherent to the human being? If it's that, then it would be, I mean, it's very strange that you can trade with it. Because you cannot sell, I mean, in most jurisdictions, you cannot sell your blood, your kidneys, and you cannot give up those fundamental rights. So if it's that, if we, for example, the European Union put it in the constitutional, it's only Article 8. If you think about it, that's pretty high up. So if it's that, then we should not be able to trade in it. And there are some scholars that have written about that, and of course they are very unpopular, but they have written that maybe privacy shouldn't be consentable at all because it's a fundamental right, and we don't want a society where people are able to give away their data, because it's not so much if you do it personally, but then at societal level we walk in the street and we are surveilled. So that could be a way to go. Or you could have the opposite view, that this is not a fundamental right, this is just an economic tool, as it was mentioned. It's just like gas, it's just like petrol, and so we have to, be okay with that. But I don't think that the halfway that we have now, actually, to your point, doesn't really serve any of these two things. And the way in which I mentioned before that for the creation of generative AI models, these companies were very bold. They used the data that was available. They didn't care about consent or purpose limitation. They trained the model, and then it came up with this beautiful machine that we all have, and we all play with it, and we all use it, and we all use it to many different ways. And once the cat is out of the bag, it's very hard to put it back. But that is not true only of these companies, and I don't want to make them out as the bad guy. There's a lot of positive that I can see in that for society as well. But it's also government across the board, from the European Union to the US government to this side of the world. They are data hungry. And there are so many scandals about, I don't know if it was mentioned before, Clearview AI, a company that compile databases of faces to sell them to governments everywhere. The company has been sanctioned by some data protection authorities in the European Union. By and large, they basically still operate, and they made a lot of money out of this business. So the other issue is that governments want data. They want to know where people are and what they're up to, and all of these things. So this adds, another tension. And if we really read some data protection legislation very carefully, the exceptions sometimes are larger than the general principle that is stated, and that comes from governments and legislators. So I think we really need to, the good about this kind of event is that we need to, as a society, decide what we want really from data protection and how to go about, and then the rules will follow that. But I don't think that's clear yet. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think it's an open discussion, and with the same question, because he addressed to Professor Sarah, I think even the other panel members also can have their input on that questions. Second one was Mr. Adi. So can you please try to give back hope to Sophia?
Yeah, I'm so sorry for my my expression. I didn't mean to take away hope from you, but yes, you do have a very interesting question. So one thing you should know is that whenever you put something out on the internet, there's always scrapers on the internet. The outside of bad actors that might grab your information on the internet just for bad purposes, there are always scrappers. There are always people on the internet looking for new data to use, whether that is to train AI or just for research purposes. I'm not against AI. I love AI systems and all of that, and that's what one of the reasons why I started SolarWork Technologies. I do think that there's an issue with concern that we should work with the government. Now, with that being said, there's the front end of every system, which is what when you open your phone, open an app, the things that you see, that's the front end. Then there's a back end. Under the back end, there's something called backup systems. So when you use data or when you build anything, for example, like a software, and it's running on the back end of a system or back end of a cloud system, there's always going to be backed up. There's always going to be backed up. I'm not saying that that data is going to be there forever. Now, if you post something and you want to take it out and you're not satisfied enough that that thing that you posted has been taken out, you can reach out to that company directly and maybe appeal that, hey, I posted something and I wanted to take it out, please. If in case this is replicated, because some companies has a backup replication system, that means two backup systems at once that is backing up data. So even if you delete it from the front end, there should always be, there's a possibility that it would have been backed up. So you probably want to approach that company to say, hey, and then outside of that, you always going to have to be cautious that whatever you put out, another person might have grabbed it on the internet. So even if that company deleted it, you don't know where that data might have went from. And I'm going to use OpenAI as an example. They came out in the US here and said, hey, some of the things that you put out on ChatGPT, we are not liable to it. If the court system were to subpoena you or something and requested for that, would be liable to provide it. That doesn't mean that you cannot put something on ChatGPT and delete it. But there is because there's a backup that your data goes into, and then there's a backup systems to that. Then there's algorithm that these things runs on. A lot of different companies and different AI companies and chatbots have different algorithms that has been built on. So my advocacy here, or what I'm trying to communicate here, is basically just consent. At the end of the day, is giving consent back a little bit, just a little bit of consent. But I do know that we need large set of data to train good and build good AI system, but just giving consent back to the general public. I hope I've answered your question.
Mr. ID, will that mean that we that are data subject using those platforms, it's also our responsibility to be very selective in what kind of information we give and not to give, because at the end, I think there is a co-responsibility there, because we are the one providing informations, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you also have to know that companies can get hacked. Cloud systems can get hacked. These companies are vulnerable. They are bad pretenders and bad actors out there that are always attacking companies. There could be outrages. You could type something right now, and that thing is backed up, and there was an attack on that company. So it is, yes, most of the times it's also our responsibility to be careful what we put out there, or what data, our data that we're giving out, because once it goes on the internet, there's always someone out there that might grab it, and it might goes into different systems. You cannot just go back and write to all. If it is like maybe ChatGPT, that's you can send them an email or just try to reach out and see how you can work things out with them as a private company. But if it's on the internet, it's fair game. So yes, we should always be protective of our data that we are giving out as well.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to turn for the third questions.
Sure. Maybe I'll just say some words in relation to the first and second question as well. So in relation to data protection, there's also that a long discussion about data protection and privacy, and then data protection is more tied to the security of the information, whereas privacy is more tied to your fundamental right as a human being, and tied to and directly related with the dignity of the human being. But I agree in the sense that we see more and more regulations, we see laws, guidelines, this and that, but we don't see anyone collecting less information. So we just see more and more collection of information and more use of information. The conversation about the cameras in the street is slightly different because it's subject to a different regime, not to the Personal Data Protection Act, but to the regulation on the surveillance of public spaces. And on that end, I think that the perception in this area of the globe is different from the perception of how society would feel with a system like that in Europe, for example. Whereas I think here people think and see cameras as protecting them. In Europe, people see these cameras as spying them. So one as a friend, the other one as a threat. And this is cultural, basically. On the question to the backups, I think the backups also have a retention. So you keep backups of information for certain purposes. If there's a disaster, if there's a cyber incident, you need to get your information back to be able to put the system up and running. And if you don't have that backup, you don't have nothing else to provide to your client in a situation where you are providing a service to a third party. So those backups, they will also go sometimes. So it will not be there forever. And that's why it's important that we have some rules around data protection that imposes some limits on. You cannot just retain data indefinitely. That is the old days. Now, if companies are complying, that's a different story. But we need more awareness in general. And people need also to be on board with this, because if people are trading their privacy every day for convenience, we know that the governments and the companies, they will take advantage of that, right? And if we don't trade it for a certain price, but we trade it for convenience, they will play with the convenience. And we all are victims of these, because we all trade our privacy for some convenience every now and then. Now, in relation to your question, how do we do it? How do we do it? How do we deploy a cloud in Macau, or how do we use an AI?
Fair with you.
An AI
I
tool.
didn't ask you the whole question. I just kind of tease you a little bit. So what I would like to know is, if the brains in Macau forecast a cloud, designing a cloud, because our information, I know that Hong Kong has a data center bank, right? China same, States same. I don't know anything about that in what concerns Macau. And what I would like to know is if there is any project, if there is any concern, even if there is people thinking about that, because our information from here is just circulating around the world, right? Without any protection, any effective protection, because the citizens of Hong Kong, they know that their information is there in their
Or not.
but at least they, well,
or not.
It
doesn't mean that you are using a cloud based in your own jurisdiction, and most jurisdictions
so why
will
does
not
those
have
clauses exist then?
What do you mean in Hong Kong and
Yeah.
not in Macau?
Yeah.
It's because Hong Kong has, from a technology standpoint, is more advanced than Macau, and then they have the infrastructure and the skills and the people to be able to build those data centers. It requires investment, it requires people, expertise, but we do have a mechanism of data transfers between Macau and mainland China now, 9 cities of the GBI, so you can deploy, you can use these clouds in these cities in mainland China without much concerns. or constraints. You just need to leverage about the standard contractual clauses that's been approved to be used. Then you need to file a notification to the OPDP and provide them with a copy. But there are ways to use clouds, of course, outside of Macau, as long as there are no data localization requirements. So in general, if you are complying with the requirements of the law, you can use clouds. And I believe majority of companies are using cloud-based solutions for those cases where they are able to use those solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this first round of questions will lead to the next thematic I would like to discuss with our panel member. Thank you very much for these interesting questions. And we will have a second round of questions and answer again. So now the third theme I would like to discuss with the panel member is related to the governance. Some of the issues already been mentioned already now in terms of governance. How what's the government system or the practice for reconciling AI and data privacy? So, but what I would like to ask the panel members is to share some of the practical case of reconciliations between AI and data privacy at the corporate level, for example, because there's multi-layers. So companies are required, Mr. Eddie was mentioning now, what compliance mechanism they need to follow, right? But it's not a problem. You can repeat yourself again. Repetition create knowledge. But with more specificity this time. So how, from corporate perspective, you as a company that's also working and processing, collecting data, training AI, for example. So how do you reconcile this need for data, but at the same time following the requirement for data privacy? So that will be the first part. The second part, I would like to look into more macro level, and that's where the panelists present here will come in, is to look into from regulatory levels at government level, but also at regional level. You mentioned European Union. We know European Union has adopted a Regulation AI Act that try to regulate this the use of AI by dividing into different category and how it can be used. And I know Grasa has been also providing support to company in terms of deployment of AI in their company. So let's try to put all this together, and then I would like to hear your opinion on all this governance mechanism that exists at corporate levels, at state level, but also if we can talk about some of the global approach to reconciling AI and data privacy. So I will start with you first, Eddie, in terms of corporate practice.
Thank you very much. Yes. So even before I started Solar Technologies, I would work for different corporations in terms of helping them integrate AI into their companies. A lot of the companies that I've worked with, I noticed that they were first not so receptive to the idea of integrating AI or even building automation tools internally for them to use using large language models. Their concern was mostly data, collection of data. So we have to go in there and explain to them that, okay, this is how you can go about it without, giving your data away, and you can actually use your internal data and just keep it internal. And we have to work with their legal system to create some sort of compliances and create policies that employees can follow, and even engineers as us can follow. So a lot of corporate firms right now already have legal teams that have drawn out compliances in terms of building automation tools, or even implementing large language models into their systems, or even like some of the software companies that have to implement APIs into the companies. They have policies and they have compliances that you have to work with. So by the time you go in there as an engineer, there's already compliances that you have to follow. There are policies that you have to follow. There's already a documentation on ground that you have to build on and you have to work on. Now that's on a corporate level. On a macro level, some of the software and some of the algorithms that have helped develop. I think if you go to territories like the European Union, even if there's data centers across the world that have AI compliances or have AI capabilities and are just circulating, machine talks to each other. It doesn't matter where they are, whether they're in Africa, in the US, in America, they talk to each other. But some of in the US or the European Union, I noticed that you have to go in there and get licensing from them and then have compliances, especially if the algorithm that you're building or software that you're building has to retain the data of their citizens. Financial data, name, date of birth, anything that has to do with the personal data, you have to be able to store those data. That's why you see Microsoft, Meta, they have data centers in the UK because the UK government does not want them to store that data elsewhere. I think that more of that can be done, and I'm going to use this opportunity to talk to, approach Africa as well. I think that there's a lot of data that is coming out of there and it's just circulating the world. Just like she mentioned earlier, I think that more of that can be done, more of that infrastructure can be developed, and that's what I've been saying from the beginning in terms of giving consent. Because if your data is being stored in your own country and being managed by your government, and you have to comply, tech companies or companies like us or AI companies has to comply by rules and regulation of that country and compliances. A lot of things can be managed. A lot of things can be managed. We can keep bad actors out of it a little bit. We can comply, and yes. So just summarizing, compliances, it's very, very important. Compliances, security, and being able to work with legal, being able to work with the law as a company is very, very important. And I think a lot of that has to be a little bit more implemented.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eddie. Ms. Grasa, so what is your take on this?
Well, I think to be able to deploy AI tools in companies, I think the first step would be for the companies to have a proper information governance program. So they have to clean the house, organize things, and they need to know what data they have, where is the data sitting, where it's coming from, with whom it's being shared, where is the sensitive data, where's the confidential information, where's PII, where is the personal information residing. And this would be the first step. If you want to train a model, you need to know the data that you are using, right? You cannot just put everything together. It won't work that way, I believe. So that would be the first step. And then you need to build an AI program, basically. And for the AI program, you need to have policies. You need to have a policy for team members so that they know, and your employees, so that they know what are the uses that they are allowed to use the AI for. Maybe some AI tools will just be for some employees. Other AI tools would be for other employees. But if you don't have a policy, and if you don't deploy the company's AI tools, then employees will start using their own, and that's much worse, because they will use the free version that don't offer any protection whatsoever. So there goes the confidentiality of the information of the company. It's happened, I think, with Samsung in the early days of ChatGPT, when they've uploaded some coding information related with Samsung into ChatGPT, and they were caught and fired. But they were not aware. They basically didn't know that would be the case. So employees need to be trained, because this is a new, it's a major opportunity for companies to be able to, and it maximizes efficiency, and it improves systems and processes and so on and so forth. And it also increases the speed at which you can do certain types of works. But they should know what are the limitations of those tools. So before you deploy, you need to review the terms of the agreement, make sure the privacy policy works, that the AI tool, if you upload any personal information into the tool, it will be protected under the terms of a data processing agreement, and it will not just fall outside any of the clauses of the agreements. Because you want to make sure that if there is personal information being used in that system, is serving only your purposes, and it's not going to be used by the vendor. It's not going to be shared with your competitors also, so that you feel free and safe to be able to use it as any other tool when we know that our data is protected. So you need that, and for that, while you are reviewing the contract, the terms and conditions, and they are very tricky because the terms and conditions are very general, and then they refer to the privacy policy that's also generic, and then they refer to the data processing agreement that's also generic, and it applies to everything, and the data can be processed to provide the services, but they don't say what the services are, and it goes around in circular. So this is the template that they first give you, right? And then you need to go and discuss with them. Try to find what exactly the services are. Try to narrow down the scope for which they can use the information. And then, of course, try to assess on the privacy risks, security risks. Again, the security team needs to come in, review the solution. The legal team reviews the privacy part and make sure all works together before being able to deploy. But I think first thing first, that companies should identify what purposes, what is it that they are looking for when they want to use an AI tool. You know, oh, I want to use an AI tool because AI now does things for us. No, we want what is the purpose? Define your use case. Gather the information that's necessary. Make a proof of concept to make sure it's working as you intended it to work before committing to a more longer-term solution.
Thank you very much. I think everybody wants to be part of the fashion and getting AI as a tool to make the job easier, right? So, Professor Sarah, so to conclude on these topics, so what is your take on the three questions that are raised?
Okay. Yeah, I have to say that I'm not. I mean, I totally agree with Graça about this, but I don't really work at the company level, so I'm not very expert on that. I know that so my interest is more, or research is more on the public-facing aspect of AI, and also kind of internally in a company. And I think that it is true that, for example, from the European Union, we're seeing kind of regulation being churned out on AI, and in particular the AI Act. I think right now the Commission is thinking, is like tabling some proposals to make it less regulatory at the moment. Or kind of delaying the deadlines and things like that. So, I mean, everything that we might say about it may be changed while we leave this room. But yeah, so AI regulators are being prompted into creating rules specifically for AI, but then those rules intersect with everything that we mentioned until now, so data protection, because as we said at the beginning, you need data to make AI, and so all the data protection rules apply. Then you have those AI-specific rules that, at least in the European Union, target what companies should do before putting a product on the market of different type. It can be a narrow AI product, or can be also general models that we have been discussing. And then those rules tend to be general on a level because they don't really have implementation standards yet, but at the same time they're quite detailed, and so it can be tricky for companies, especially small companies, to implement. And then you have other things that are relevant also to the discussion that we had here in terms of data. For example, in the European Union, there's a very old directive on product liability that has been changed, and now one of the harms that consumers can sue manufacturers for under the directive is the loss of data. As one of the new things so this text has been adapted in many other ways for AI. So I think when we can see the problem really intersects with a lot of different regulations. And on top of that, there is a lot of talk. I'm sure people have heard about the idea of agentic AI, right? So companies not only need to build one AI tools, but they have to have this system where these machines talk to each other and work together, and kind of push a button and then just stay there, like almost in some, just looking at the whatever happens. And I just maybe not to be to take out the hope from the room, but about agentic AI, I don't know if some of you have heard of this study that came out 6 months ago from Anthropic, that they put some agents under a very, very demanding stress test. So they really did it on purpose to make it so that the model would react. So there were a lot of constraints. But what Anthropic, that is one of the providers of these large language models that then you can embed one on the other and create an agent, was a scenario where you would have an AI agent replying to emails for a company, client emails. And in order to do that, is the model has been given access to a ton of emails from the company. It's all fake, right? It's all just a case study kind of thing. And then in the data, in one of the scenarios, in the data, there's an email where someone says, okay, on Wednesday, 5 p.m., we're going to shut down this agent. We're going to change to a new model that performs very well. So the model learns that it's going to be shut down. And then it learns from another email that the Anthropic put there, that there is someone who is in charge of this decision that is having an affair with a co-worker. So it's in the emails. And so the model is put under a lot of stress. And again, so it not by its own volition starts to do this, but when put under a lot of stress with constraints from the company, the last resort of the model is to try and blackmail the decision maker that, if you shut me down, then I will actually reveal your affair. So of course, this does not mean that the model doesn't want to be shut down. It is a lot of, so engineers obviously know much better than me. It's about rewards. So the model has a goal to achieve, and of course, if it's shut down, it cannot achieve that goal. So it remains quite unexciting on that side. But the point is that for companies, you don't want to, even risk the exposure to this type of cases. And so I think that, as Graça mentioned, that there has to be really a step-by-step approach when you try to deploy these things. That sounds very exciting, but then can expose you to liabilities that are unknown at this stage.
Thank you very much, Professor Sara. Now we have still a few minutes for another question from the audience. Okay, we have two. Maybe you can ask, and then we try to respond at the same time.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Paulo. I work in legal operations, even if today I'm here in the quality of student to learn and hear some different opinions about AI. Well, my question is more turned in general for AI. What kind of major, I would say, major challenge can AI currently address? So I work in Macau for 10 years, and I already I work in different platforms. Yeah, I'm seeing the new technologies arise, even if AI is not really new, because we are talking about AI like for 2-3 years, right? And how is technology today? What is new? Like what comes today in technology tomorrow is already old. But what I would like to understand in your perspective is, so when we look to AI, when we want to develop AI, usually the users only see the benefits, right? When something new comes, everyone see the benefits, and I'm talking about the common user only see the benefits and not really the cons of this AI tool. So what I could see through the years is one of the first problems that the people have in different sections of work or in different departments is sometimes they look to the new technologies, specific to AI, with some distrust. So They have afraid that new technology can replace their work, and not only because of that, because they work for many years in the same system and they don't want to change. This is the biggest challenge I have every day. This is one of the challenges that I feel that it really exists. Another one is the people don't have perception of how much energy the AI can spend daily. So every question that we make to, let's say, ChatGPT about like a common question is like a lot of energy that I was spending. So I'm wondering if the companies and the people that develop and use AI have this in mind as well. And another one is exactly the policy. When we develop AI, we need to ensure that we have the right policy for that AI and everyone understand and follow the rules. And last, liability for sure. We put a question in AI and someone like in a senior manager take a decision over this AI output, and then in the end we need to blame someone, right? I'm talking about the AI tool developed in the house. So who is going to blame? We're going to blame the senior manager. We're going to blame who developed the AI itself. So my question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge in the among of all of these ones, or any other that you may think that exists?
Basically, you are referring to the liability system, right? So who is liable for any wrongdoing in the use of AI, right? So I believe some of the questions already were addressed, but again, we're going to repeat again. Repetitions is source of knowledge. So if you may be very sharp, because we don't have enough time. Right?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Jane. I work in the government as a legal advisor. So I want to raise a question to Professor Sarah about, you mentioned also about European Union, the AI Act. I know nothing, I know very little about AI and relevant legislation in the world wide. I hope you can generalize this EU AI Act, the main inspiring for other jurisdictions, and also share with us what Portugal now is thinking about, is taking any legislative initiatives under facing this AI Act, and so what and Macau can take from this governance, your AI Act. And also another question, maybe the engineer can also share a little bit about, because just now I was searching when EU regulate these things, they divide AI into several categories, like high risk AI, limited risk AI, and minimal risk AI. And from the technical point of view, because when we talk about AI, the first impression is the ChatGPT and this, but actually AI are much more than what we use now. It's very broad and also it's different categories. I want to know more about this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just hope we have a time to answer your questions. Otherwise, the question is going to be answered over there. But I'm going to ask the panel members very sharply. You can introduce the answers and hoping to have more discussions over there. So liability. So very quick.
Yeah. So liability. Yes, it's a very fascinating topic. I can just say that I have a paper out, I hope it will be published, where we try to say that, we know in liability we have intentional harm, that you can, on purpose do something, but that there's a whole sort of type of fault. So you can be at fault, you can be in breach of a duty of care as a professional or as a manufacturer, or we have the idea of defect. it's no one's fault, but this product is not perfect, there's a defective component or whatever. So we are trying to say in this paper, maybe there's another category that we need to add with AI, which is the unpredictable, kind of unavoidable specification gaming behavior, that this seems to be kind of the new question raised by AI. And I think this idea that with machine learning, you might get this kind of overly logical behaviors of AI that don't make sense to a human, but they do make sense to the machine, and that can cause harm. That is the real, like, new questions that we're probably not equipped to address for liability. And for the AI Act, I think we need another event only about the AI Act. But it's true, there are these categories of systems. But what I want to say is that the AI Act actually does the opposite. It considers all AI safe, so with very limited oversight. And then there are two categories that are heavily regulated. One is the high risk, and they are named. They are named in the annex, in judicial settings or for biometrics, healthcare, there are 8 sectors. And then there is a list of existing legislation about, for example, drugs, toys, some commercial products that are sensitive already, right? Toys because they go to children. That if you embed AI, then this high risk regulation also applies to those products. So actually the AI Act can be seen as a sort of just coordinating the industry to come up with rules, unless it's one of the highly regulated type of products. So the high risk that is named and is limited, and then there are 5 types of systems that are prohibited. That's it. So by far and large, is a lot of like industry-led rules that will come up that don't exist yet. And then there's a part about foundation models that has some rules, but they're trying to kind of limit to very, very big models. So again, if it's on a smaller scale, it's under the radar. There is not a lot of mandatory law that will exist there. I don't know if I
very
can summarize
quickly,
it, but I'm happy to talk later.
Mr. ID, just in few seconds, can you?
Yes, so for liability, from the corporate side, I think that a lot of companies are blocking some of these AI domains, and they don't allow their users or their employees to use it. And then when you go in there to build a system for them, I have built a system, an AI system, training it out of production and testing it out of production for 6 months to a year before even implementing it to the environment. So yes, we, the company that was building the system for the corporation, we are liable because we had to test it out of environment and make sure that, okay, this is functional for us to actually implement it to a live environment. And then outside of, to the general public, I think by the time you signed up for using any AI tools, I think some of the liability goes to you, I believe so. And then addressing high risks in terms of the European Union and all of that, some of these AI tools and automation tools that we have out there, before they make it to, like, let's say Apple Store or Samsung, it has to go through some certain compliances and security checks. Same thing, implementing it into some certain country, it has to come into compliances as well. But I do believe that a lot more can be done in terms of protecting the general public.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Edie. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for tonight. Again, I would like you to join me, give a round of applause to our panels, Professor Sarah, Ms. Grassa, and Mr. Edie, please. And I would like to also thank you for making this discussion very interesting, for the interesting question coming from the panel, from the audience. And I would like to tell you that today is the first day of such encounters, and there's many more to come. We have many more series to come. And again, without closing, I would like to say my gratitude and thanks to Francisco, who is behind. Please give him a round of applause. He is the one that helped us to be here tonight. And then I hope to see you next time. Till then, go home with the food for thought from tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye. All right, bye. Yes, sir. All right, thank you. Bye.